This is ContactTalkRadio.com, consciousness in action, and you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Ping.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio.
So excited to be here today. Beautiful, beautiful Thursday morning. And last night we launched we had our last health accelerator course, or our hack for the cardio program we've been doing over the last 4 weeks. So we issued a few cool challenges there. Make sure you are on that. So if you haven't had a chance to dive into that, it's at acueastwest.com/hack. HAC stands for Health Accelerator Course. And make sure you're getting on that challenge. So we got a really cool guest today. I'm going to pass the baton. We finally got Reagan back this week. Last couple of weeks, he's been he's just been working. Had some other stuff, some masterminds going on, and so you guys get to hear from Reagan once again. So excited to have you back, Reagan. Hopefully we didn't lose too many listeners while you were gone. And so I'm going to turn it over to Reagan and let him introduce our really cool guest today. I'm excited to hear this show, and so I'm going to sit back and I'll be hanging out in the background if you guys need anything. Also, Ann Marked is here in the chat box to answer any questions you guys have. So looking forward to today's show. Let's give it up. I'll bring on Reagan, the founder and originator of Go Wellness and founding member of Anodyne Pain and Wellness Clinics. And he's going to be interviewing with Michel Czehatowski today. And I'll let Reagan introduce Michel. So take it away, Reagan.
All right. Well, Michel, really it's a pleasure to have you on. We met at my Lotus training about 2 weeks ago. I was doing a course there, and really appreciate the email because we've never had someone talk specifically about Tai Chi on the show. I've shared Qigong exercises, but as we jump in, your background, you studied Tai Chi with Paul Pitchford, who's a legend from 1975 to 1980. It was through your teacher's influence that you enrolled in the San Francisco College of Acupuncture and Oriental Medicine in 1981 when acupuncture was barely legal. So I really appreciate you being a pioneer there. You were licensed to practice acupuncture in 1984. And so you today are one of the you've got big vision, big goals for Tai Chi. But Michel, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here and a pleasure to have the opportunity to talk to everybody.
And what is your fascination with Tai Chi? I mean, you've been doing Tai Chi for longer than I've been alive.
Yeah, that's what I kind of figured. So my fascination with Tai Chi is that I was interested in martial arts, and when I first discovered Tai Chi, it was I saw a sign. I had no idea what it was about. I thought it was like a type of kung fu, and I was going to learn self-defense, and it was totally different. Paul, and he's the author of Healing with Whole Foods. You've probably seen that book, an acupuncturist, and a lot of people probably don't know that he's an excellent Tai Chi instructor, and still to this day practices like twice a day. He's getting close to 80 years old. But anyways, my interest was in martial arts. And then with meeting Paul, his classes were a combination of learning Oriental medicine because he talked about acupuncture a lot. Yeah. And later I found out that he was an acupuncturist. And he taught classes in Whole Foods, and he taught classes in shiatsu massage and things like that. And it was through that introduction with him that I got a good, strong foundation in Oriental medicine and increased interest in that kind of art.
Wow. And so, you stumbled across Tai Chi accidentally then. You thought you were going to learn self-defense. Did you end up studying Kung Fu?
I had actually taken about a year and a half of it before Tai Chi. And then I was up at college. I was going to college in Idaho, of all places. You'd think in Idaho, you'd be out in the back of the woods and nothing would be there. But
Hey, I'm from Idaho.
oh, are you? Okay.
Yeah.
And you'd think
Back
there'd
of the
be nothing
woods.
there, right?
Yeah, look, I mean, I am kind of a hillbilly, so yes.
Yeah, well, you know where Moscow, Idaho is up at
Yeah, of course.
or the Panhandle. So anyways, that would be like the last place I would think you'd learn about acupuncture in the mid 1970s.
Yeah.
So, but it just so happened that that's where I learned about it, and it was a very interesting experience.
Wow. So Moscow, Idaho is where it was introduced to you.
It was, yeah. So I studied there. Well, I went to college, number one. But then after I studied with Paul for 5 years, I decided to move to California. I was interested in Buddhist meditation. And there's a place in California called the City of 10,000 Buddhas, which is in north of San Francisco, a couple hours north of San Francisco in Talmadge. And so I went there. And at that time, I also started my first Tai Chi classes and volunteered to teach. They had some schools there, Instilling Virtue Elementary School. And I volunteered to teach Tai Chi to the students there, a little PE class. And then at that point, I also found out that there was an acupuncture college in San Francisco. And so it was one of the first colleges, the San Francisco College of Acupuncture and Oriental Medicine. And so I applied, and I think they were just accepting anybody who could pay, to be honest with you, at that time. But anyways, I was excited to be accepted into the class. And went through a 3-year program. Nowadays they have, master's level degree or doctorate degrees in acupuncture. At that time, it was just a certificate program, and you qualified to take the state board exams. So I did that. I went through the program, qualified, took my exam, and started practicing acupuncture. And now it's been 36 years later. It's still at it.
Still stabbing people.
Yeah, not as much, but still doing it. Yes.
So Tai Chi, let's, we'll get into what it is. I think that's really important to explain the concept, but also, what was your first experience? What was that connection that you had with Tai Chi that has kept you going for 50 years, or 45 years? So
part of that is the influence of Paul. And, there's, I think everybody's heard of the Tao Te Ching. In chapter 10 of that book, they say, have you gathered up your vital energy and achieved the suppleness of a child? So have you got your flexibility of a child? And Paul was like that, very soft and flexible. Now, of course, he was much younger then, but even today, like I said, he's close to 80 years old. He's just like a child. It's like if you're to take a child's arms, like a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, hold their hands, say, walk with me across their street, their arms light and flexible. He's like that. He's very, very flexible. He's not the picture of stiff and old age. So my experience with him early on was that he was very soft and flexible, which was quite the opposite of everybody else. But then the other thing too is that I started noticing changes in my own body. For example, my hands were all, kind of tight. Because I'd done, like karate, kung fu. And I started to notice that they were not so tight. And pretty soon, well, not pretty soon, but within months or, within a year, they had changed quite a bit. So I started feeling more flexible. So I started feeling this increasing flexibility, plus a deep sense of relaxation when I practiced Tai Chi. And that kind of hooked me on practicing because of course, we like to do things that make us feel good. Yeah. And I found this was very relaxing, increasing flexibility. And it was just, it was like finding a guru kind of thing, like here's the path to youth or rejuvenation. Wow.
My Japanese teacher is 82 now, and we call her Gumby. Because she, that analogy is perfect, soft, flexible, like a kid. And she can just bend her body in ways that I'm not even I don't have near the flexibility she does, nor does any other students of hers have the same flexibility. But there's something to the practice of Tai Chi. So do you have that same kind of that suppleness and flexibility? Have you cultivated that?
I think compared to people my age and mid 60s, that I'm very flexible. Of course, there's people always going to be more flexible than you or stiffer than you or whatever. But I'm going to just say I feel comfortable in my body. I don't feel like it's not a struggle to get out of bed. I don't have to like get out of bed and stretch for 5 minutes or 10 minutes before I can move and things like that. I mean, I just get out of bed. I can go on a long car ride, and most people go on a long car ride and they get out and they're stiff, like, oh, I got to stretch. And I can go on a long car ride and get out. It's just like, when you have children, children are always a good example, but you take them somewhere and you go on a long trip, like you're going to Marine World or Disney World or something like that, and you're in the car for hours. And when you get there, they jump out and they're like, oh, Dad, Mom, let's go. And the adults are going out and they're going, oh, let me, I gotta stretch a little bit because I'm a little stiff from driving. So, but I find with practicing Tai Chi, I'm more like the kid. You get out of the car, it's like, okay, let's go. It's not a big deal. And part of that, I think, is because Tai Chi also helps with blood circulation in the body, which is real important. So it helps with your circulation, lubricating your joints. And like I said, that's one thing that's kept me going with Tai Chi is just feeling good. You just, you feel comfortable in your body. You're not everybody's got some aches and pains. And certainly, I've had injuries here and there that have kind of slowed me down for a while, but you come back from them.
Yeah. What a fascinating journey. I mean, I love the Tao Te Ching. You referenced chapter 10, being that soft, supple, it's the water, the softest thing in the universe can overcome the hardest thing in the universe. Right. And so.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, I'm a big Bruce Lee fan too. And he's always was saying, become like water. And it's a lot more challenging than it sounds in our Western world, where we're always pushing for more. And, I've been on this weightlifting journey the last year and put on about 20 pounds of muscle. And at the same time, what I was doing today are full length squats. And so I'm trying to keep my back straight and trying to relax more when I lift. And it's the weirdest thing, because I've never felt better doing squats. I did 45 minutes of squats this morning, and my body feels so energized because I took the time to get in full range of motion and let my body relax when I was doing squats, instead of just trying to bust out the next rep. And so it's this universal principle that if we want to get stronger, we've got to become more gentle and more flexible. And I think it's the same thing in our minds. If we want to overcome big challenges in life, the only way we can do it is having some mental flexibility. So how would you define Tai Chi, Michael?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to define. A lot of people think of it just as an exercise, and it's, quite frankly, it's just taught as an exercise. Tai Chi has evolved over the years, and it has a history that goes back 400 to 600 years. And more recently, for example, like the Yang style of Tai Chi, which I practice, is the most popular style, and that goes back about 200 years. But it started off as a martial art, and it has changed over the years. In the early 1900s, Yang Chung Fu, who is considered the greatest 20th century master, started teaching publicly. Prior to that, it would be mostly within families or, special people who got to learn it. But he started teaching publicly, and he was an exceptional martial artist. And because of that, people wanted to learn. Mm-hmm. So in the process, he also apparently simplified the form, made it easier for people to learn. And so what we have today is a very, gentle exercise. And we don't really emphasize the martial aspects of it. Some people do. There's some styles like the Chen style, and a lot of people are into learning the martial aspect of it. But for the most part, the Yang style is not really emphasizing the martial aspects. So with Tai Chi, what we're trying to do is to, once again, rejuvenate our body. And so when you say what is Tai Chi, it's a lot of things. It's like a way to improve your health. It's a way to meditate. It's a way to stretch. It's a way to do a lot of things. And some people find it's almost like a way of life, because you learn not only to interact or be comfortable with your body, but be comfortable with others. There's a whole series of two-person movements. We call them push hands.
Mm-hmm.
Paul would call it join hands, once again, de-emphasizing the martial aspect of it. A lot of people in competition it looks like wrestling, but the way Paul taught it, it was soft, interacting with somebody, learning how to merge with somebody's energy, learn if they push, then you react. If they don't push, you don't react. So Tai Chi can go beyond just the exercise. It's like learning how to be comfortable with everybody and being more accepting. A couple of years ago, I was visiting Paul, and one of my students asked me to ask him, like, what was the most important 3 top things you learned from your teacher? And his response was just one, it was kindness. And so it's an interesting response because I don't think most people would say that. They'd go, oh, well, he taught me how to hold my head straight. He taught me to do a good posture or whatever. So, but I think in answering that it's kindness, it's just like you're learning how to be one with everybody. And that's kind of a Taoist principle. So that we were talking a little bit before we started, but Tai Chi, the name, that is actually the Chinese word for the yin yang symbol, what we call the yin yang symbol. A lot of Americans call it yang. It's actually pronounced yang, but that's where the name comes from. And the symbol, I think people are familiar with it. It's a circle with like a S shape. One side's black, one side's white, little dots in the center. The circle signifies unity in all things. And then the separation, which is not straight, it's not like a straight line down the center, shows that there are opposites in the world. So, or in all things, actually, you have, from astronomy, like, stars and black holes are opposites, right? You have a floor, you have a ceiling, you have a shadow, you have sun. Everything has opposites. And so, but what you want is to get this unity of just oneness. And that's where Tai Chi comes in, that which is also a part that attracts me a lot too, is learning how to not discriminate. We look at people and we go, oh, you're fat, you're thin, you're rich, you're poor, whatever, and try to get beyond that and just look at people, oh, you're a person, and I can accept you for that. And that's what we need in the world today. We need to learn how to accept people.
Wow. And it's such a powerful thing because there's no judgment attached to it. And I was even in a conversation about the beautiful nature of even politics. We have Democrats and Republicans, and the reason why we have a 2-party system is so that we can have opposing ideas, and then we can come together to have these differences of opinion, and ideally we'll help progress society that much faster. I mean, imagine if all of us had the same opinions in America. It would be a really boring place to live, and there would be no innovation. And so Tai Chi is kind of like where from what you describe, it's cultivating that process where you can become one with everyone. And maybe you could go deeper on that, because it's such a challenging place to get, especially when somebody looks different than you, they act differently, they're from a different culture, for example. So go deeper on that, Michael. I think there's some real wisdom in that.
Well, I think that once again, we tend to judge people right away. I was with a friend a number of years ago in Los Angeles, and we were down by the beach somewhere, and we were kind of lost. We didn't really know where we were at. And this guy comes along, and he looks like a gangbanger guy. And not somebody I would approach, right? And my friend just goes up to him. My friend just goes up to him and says, like, hey, do you know how to get to blah, blah, blah? And the guy goes, oh, yeah, you just take go down this way and blah, blah, blah. And I go, wow, he's just under his tattoos and, dress. He's just a regular guy. And so, little things like that. I mean, we're all people when we get down to it, and that's the thing with Tai Chi. It's like, it's a lesson. People learn it as an exercise, but they don't go into the philosophy of it so much. I mean, some people do. I'd like to go into it. I like to, through training, through this exercise, to learn how to, once again, feel one with everything, instead of like, we're all banging heads. And it's like you said, in politics, we should blend and find some, give and take. And that's basically what Tai Chi is about. It's a give and take. So, for example, there's an exercise we call push hands. And once again, Paul called it join hands, where somebody pushes on a wrist and then somebody pushes back on a wrist. But we do it softly and we learn how to react with somebody's energy. So that's just like the physical level, but we do that. We should be able to do that emotionally or verbally or however, just work with people and just try to find, always trying to look for the common good and not worry about things so much. I mean, everybody's going to have worries. Everybody's going to have problems. That's just life in general. It goes up and down. That's a cycle of yin and yang too. So we just need to learn how to relax, accept things more. When you're stressed, take the deep breath time and step back a little bit. I was reading something just the other day and it said, when you're on the path ahead is narrow, but if you step back a little bit, then sometimes the path widens up. And I think that's true. Sometimes you step back and look at things and take a new perspective on it.
Yeah. And it's a refreshing way to live. And you talk, physical flexibility is one thing, but I think there's some transfer of that physical flexibility into mental flexibility and spiritual flexibility. I love being in Ireland. I love their philosophy on weather. They say, well, if you don't like the weather, just wait, because literally the weather is similar to San Francisco. The weather will change every hour. And so you'll need a coat and you'll be, feel like it's going to snow. And then all of a sudden the sun will come out and the wind will stop blowing and it's 70 degrees and you want to put shorts on. And then clouds come in, it starts raining. And I think that's a great analogy for life that you alluded to there, which is you've got to have flexibility, but that compassion for all things and trying to cultivate that oneness is something that goes a long ways. And so would you say that the physical practice of Tai Chi is a practice that helps you in day-to-day life so that you can cope with those? Or are you just somebody who has, spent a lot of time doing more of the spiritual work and studies that way?
No, I would say the exercises do that. But I'd like to say this too, is that what I learned was the Tai Chi long form, okay? And long is definitely the word because it takes about 35 minutes more or less to practice the whole form. So you're doing it for quite a while. Most people will learn what's called a short form. In the late 1940s, early 1950s in China, to promote exercise among people, they adopted Tai Chi, but they also shortened it and they made like a 24 movement form, which is basically an exercise. And so I think with people just doing a short form, and these short forms are also for competition, I think when you're doing a short form, you don't kind of get into those deeper layers because in 5 minutes, it's really hard to learn how to meditate. So, but if you're spending 35 minutes, the movements, for people who aren't familiar with Tai Chi, what you do is you learn a series of interconnected movements that are based on martial art moves. And they flow from one to another and it's done very slowly, gracefully. It takes time to learn. But if you're doing something that only takes like 5 minutes, it's like, you don't really get into the deeper realms of Tai Chi. When you're doing it for 35 minutes, the movements become like a mantra. A mantra is something like in meditation that you repeat over and over, like Om is a common one, or some Chinese mantras have like 100 and something words to them or whatever. But this is like, it's a movement mantra. It's like you go over this and you learn these movements and learn how to relax doing these movements and become aware of different parts of your body. You're aware of your hands as you push, your elbows, your shoulders, different parts. And so you're moving your consciousness to different parts of your body. And through this awareness, that's where we're starting to become aware not only of our body, but eventually of things outside, like I said, feeling more at one with nature or the environment or people or things like that.
Yeah. And so Tai Chi, I mean, I've seen I've never been to China, but I've seen in the parks, you've got hundreds of people doing the same movement patterns together. The short form and long form, it's interesting. So your idea is the long form actually allows you to cultivate some of those mindsets and some of the abilities to really become one with things. Short form is a bit more of an exercise, and there's actually competitions in Tai Chi, is what you're saying, where you can go and you can just see how perfectly you do the movements. Is that what the competitions are like, or?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I went to, I was in China. I've been to China quite a few times over the years, but in the last few years, I happened to meet a gentleman over there who teaches Tai Chi. One of his students came to the city I live in, Redding, California, and came to my Tai Chi class and invited me, to meet her teacher one day. And it just so happened that, like 6 months later, I was planning to be in China with my girlfriend, and we were going to their city, so I got to meet him. So they do what, the shorter versions of Tai Chi. They've got, they still have a long form, but they do shorter versions, and they're way into competition. So one of the last times I went to a competition, and there was like 3,000 or 4,000 people there, and it wasn't all just Tai Chi, but it's all sorts of martial arts. It was really interesting, but they see how low you can sink or how high you can kick, or, it's just, and it's graded on points. And that's, to me, that's not meditative. It's competition. It's,
sure.
Oh yeah, I can sink way down. I can, touch my rear end to the ground and get back up very slowly, or, but I'm not interested in that myself. It's like, my classes are non-competitive. We do what we can do, and we've got all ages. Most people are older who start Tai Chi, though I'd love to have, people in their teenagers or 20s or 30s or 40, more people like those ages come to classes. But it's not a competition. And once again, when you're at the competitive level, you're not like at the meditative level. That's two different sides of the coin. It's the yin and yang of it, I think.
And so your preference is the long form, a little more of the cultivating that more grounded aspect of it. And you've got the Tai Chi, the reddingtaichi.com. That's your website, and that's where you do your trainings. You also do Zoom classes. Is that correct?
I do. Yeah. So in Redding, I started teaching around 1981, and I taught for a few years, went to acupuncture school, so I stopped during there, and then afterwards started again, but kind of on and off. And then raising a family and things like that, I didn't teach for, like 25 years. And so just around 2015, I started teaching again, and my classes have been popular. People like them. I've always got a waiting list, and they're always full. So I teach classes. I have a couple different classes going. I teach with a local community college. They've got like an introductory class that I teach, and then I teach my long form class. And then with COVID-19, we started teaching on Zoom, and those people like those classes. They, people come in, it's like having a private teacher. You're kind of in your room, and plus you don't have to get ready and go somewhere, right? So you save a lot of time and doing things. And some people who are, for example, one of my students is a physician, and he goes, it saves him time. He doesn't have to take that half hour to drive out there and half hour to drive back and things like that. So it makes a difference. And then once again, we're not training for competition. And I find that most people, like in my regular classes, people follow along very well. You just give instructions, and people do amazingly well. And I look at these people a lot of times, I'm thinking, wow, they're really good. They pick it up really quick. And so I feel that people are doing that on Zoom too. So I do teach Zoom classes, and you can go to my website, and if you'd like to sign up for that, you're more than welcome to do that. I'd like to mention too that as part of my my Tai Chi classes here in Redding, we're working on building a Tai Chi practice area. We call it the Redding Tai Chi Meditation Garden. And it's going to be a 55-foot circular, like a large patio, but the design is going to be in flagstone, and it's going to be in the yin yang symbol, or once again, that is called the Tai Chi diagram. And so our goal is to build this in a few years. And so when you sign up for a Zoom class or any of my Tai Chi classes, all the money is donated to this project. So you learn Tai Chi, you help support a good cause. And one thing I like to do is teach Tai Chi so it's more prevalent in the community, because as part of Chinese medicine, preventative healthcare is very important.
And when we were talking about your Tai Chi garden, I said, man, this is, I love that concept. And your goal is to raise about $250,000 so you can get this built by, is it 2023 or 2023?
2023. We need about 225,000, and that's projecting with we've got a cost from a contractor, but then we've one of our advisors said, you got to predict, inflation, cost of living increases and stuff like that. So, like if we built it today, it'd be about 200,000, right? So in 3 years, it's going to be it's going to be more. So, so our goal is the sooner the better kind of thing. But we've raised about $70,000 so far. So we feel like we're doing good. We've been working on this for several years. But another aspect of this too is that our idea is based on one that was built on the East Coast called the David Chen Memorial Memorial Tai Chi Court. And so they built it, and we saw that and said, wow, it'd be wonderful to have something like this. So it's going to be basically the only Tai Chi practice area in the shape of the yin yang symbol on the West Coast. And I think it's going to open dialogue up for people to talk about, like, what is this symbol, or how does it relate to health? What's Tai Chi? Things like that. So that's a big part of it too, is just to, get people more interested in Tai Chi, because like I said, you don't have to get in as deep in it as I do, but just any exercise is good. And like lifting weights, I mean, you feel better when you do it. You go walking, you feel better. You do something, you feel better. And you've got to keep moving throughout life. Now, another part of Tai Chi too is that that's also an attraction, is that you can start at any age. There's I've seen pictures of people in China. Or actually, I went at that tournament I went to in China. There's little kids doing Tai Chi, but you don't ever have to quit. At some point with your weightlifting, the amount of weight you're lifting is going to go decrease, or maybe you're not going to do it as much. There's going to be a point where you physically can't do that as much. It's just like one of my neighbors who played tennis, and as he got into his late 70s, he said, "Oh, the court's getting bigger." Well, it's not getting bigger; he's just getting slower, right? It's just harder to run across there.
Right.
But he played till, I think he said he switched off to pickleball, and he's like 78 years old or something like that. So he's still very active, but not everybody can do that. There's a lot of people, in their 40s, 50s that are having trouble moving. And Tai Chi is perfect because you don't need to be fast. You don't need to be agile. You don't need to be strong. You just need to be you. You can come out there and practice, and you don't have to quit, because it's going to get better with age. It's kind of like, some things just get better as they get older.
Yeah. Well, and that's, my teacher talks about that a lot. Are you familiar with So Tai Ho?
No.
So So Tai Ho is, it's a Japanese kind of postural movement analysis. So it's like the opposite of what we think in American culture, where if you have a tight quad, let's just say your right leg is really tight. And so what we think in American culture is, let's start working on that right leg and stretch it out. But what they do in So Tai Ho is it's the opposite. You would work your left leg out and get that stretched out and do movements to help facilitate the left side and give the right side a break. And then it's interesting how it works, because by the time you're done with the So Tai Ho exercises, both legs are even. And you can do the same with your arms. There's different movements you can do with your arms, but it's all about equalizing the body, the tension in the body, and distributing it so that your body can have this upright posture. And so a lot of the Tai Chi movements go along with it. So Tai Ho is more like a physical therapy that my grandmaster Kaitso Hashimoto came up with in the late 1800s, early 1900s. He was a physician and just saw that shiatsu and acupuncturists and moxibushionists in Japan were getting incredible results with his patients, far better than what he was getting with the chemicals he was throwing at them. And so he went about and kind of created his own movement therapy called So Tai Ho. And he was also studied Tai Chi and martial arts as well.
Yeah, a big part, something like that too, is that, we have the set movements, which we call Tai Chi, but Tai Chi is basically being consciously aware of your body. I mean, that's kind of another way to sum it up. So it can be different things. You can look at people who are really excel at something, the pianist or the ice skater or whatever, and they get, kind of like in that groove and they're just kind of like there at that moment. And that's kind of like experiencing Tai Chi. So it's not just, once again, just go to class and do a half-hour exercise routine. I mean, it can be anything. You just do a conscious movement, consciously aware of everything.
That needs to be the title of your next book, Michael. Tai Chi, how to be consciously aware of your movements. Because it's something that we are so unconscious about. And, I worry about everyone walking around with their faces in their smartphones and not really aware of how their body is. And then they go to move it. And just like you say, it's similar to when you get out of the car, when you're traveling, you get out of the car and it's like, oh, I'm so stiff. And I think a lot of it is we lose that awareness because we're distracted by so many things. And the one thing that there's a shortage of today is attention. And so with Tai Chi, whenever I've done it, I've practiced mostly Qigong, and maybe we can talk about the differences between the two. But anytime I've done any of the movements, it takes an incredible amount of attention and focus to do these movements. And especially when you go through some of the animal patterns, and maybe you could talk about those as well. But yeah, I find that Tai Chi could be that link to help us get a little more conscious about our movement, which is probably even better than building strength. It's going to help with your balance, your proprioception, everything will be improved. But what is the difference between Qigong and Tai Chi?
So Qigong, there's lots of different styles of Qigong, and you'll find lots of different stories about it, different masters of Qigong, and they say, oh, my Qigong goes back, like 800 years or 1,000 years or 2,000 years or things like that. And actually it doesn't. Qigong, the word Qigong really came up right around the 1940s in China. And most people don't realize that it's very new. The word Qigong, if you're a scholar and you search for these words, apparently you don't find it very much. You find it just a couple times in some of these textbooks. So they didn't really use that term. What they did use was a term or an exercise they called Dao Yin or Neigong, inner work. So the roots of that go back, once again, thousands of years. There was a tomb that was excavated around 1973, and it's called Ma Wangdui. And in that tomb, they found a treasure trove of books, like all kinds of different books and different things. But one scroll that they had showed different exercises, which were what we'd probably call today like Qigong, basically like a stretching exercise. And they had different applications, or like you do this and it cures that or prevents this kind of thing. So there's definitely a long history with doing that. Hua Tuo, who was a physician in China around end of the Han Dynasty, around 200 AD, is said to have come up with this series of 5 animal exercises, which might be between Qigong and Tai Chi. But modern day Qigong really started like in the 1940s. A lot of stuff happened around then in China. Yeah. But there was a physician, I believe he was a physician, who got interested in breathing exercises and stuff and started teaching it. And because he was politically connected, got it involved, and everybody, thought it would be good for everybody else, kind of like with Tai Chi, you shorten it and teach it to everybody. So so they started teaching Qigong, and people started liking it, and it became very popular. And then over time, people kind of started coming out of the woodwork, like, oh, my master comes from the mountains. Well, when you start thinking about this, there must have been, 10,000 men in the mountains who were hidden away, who came down and taught this one person, that their special thing. So I think a lot of it's just made up as far as the stories of Qigong and the history of it. That's my personal opinion. But that's not to say that Qigong isn't effective. It's a series of breathing exercises. The difference between Qigong and Tai Chi is, number one, is that Qigong is a little more stationary. Tai Chi is also based on martial arts, so it has a function to the movement. Qigong exercises, as I've observed, and maybe I probably haven't seen all of them, but as far as I know, there's, other than moving around a little bit, there's no particular function for them. So once again, Tai Chi, you could have a movement that's considered a block or a punch or a push or things like that. So there's an application to it. So that would be some of the differences of it. I would think that if you like Qigong, you might like Tai Chi better because there's a little more movement to it. And it's not as stationary. But there are a lot of similarities, but I would say that would be one of the main differences between them. Basically, in Tai Chi, all the breathing routines that you do in Qigong are already there. What happens in Tai Chi is that they are up and down movements. You're said to, when one part moves, all parts move. And so another way of expressing this is the upper part should match the lower part. So we have movements we call rising and sinking, moving up and down. The arms move up and down, the legs move up and down, but together. And when you do this slowly, it synchronizes your breathing a lot of times. So you rise, you inhale, you sink, you exhale, but you don't force it. You're not trying to anything like that, right? So you just naturally breathe, and this brings that meditative process to that. Which I think would be more towards Qigong, but with Qigong, sometimes I think you need to count it. I remember taking a class years ago, but it was like, okay, do this thing 6 times, or do this wet side 6 times, or do this 9 times. And Tai Chi is not like that. It's just, you just learn the movements and do them. So, which is another thing too about Tai Chi too, is once you learn the movements, that's when you start getting into the more meditative level, when you really don't think about it as much. And I think that would be probably similar in Qigong too. When you don't think about it as much, you probably get a lot more benefit.
Yeah. In the beginning, studying Qigong was very confusing because I'm just like, okay, this hand's going this way, this one's going that way. I'm in the horse stance or I'm not. And the more that you do it, the better it becomes. I've always heard the definition of Qigong is working to cultivate the Qi. Would you disagree with that, or have any other insights on that definition?
Yeah, I think that's true. That's when people focus on cultivating your Qi. Now, Qi is defined as energy in the body. Okay, vital energy, and people focus on that a lot. But another topic of conversation is that there's no historical basis for calling Qi energy. So, but that's a whole nother conversation to get into.
We got a couple minutes, but yeah, I mean, I think it's a fascinating one too. So maybe you just, go a little deeper on that one, because I think it's an important distinction.
Well, let me say this first. So with Qigong, cultivating the Qi, in Tai Chi, you cultivate the Qi also in the body. And certainly people can feel things. You can feel, sometimes you feel a warmth in your hands, or different sensations that just kind of naturally happen. But in Tai Chi, there's some writings we call the Tai Chi classics, and they say, don't focus on the Qi. If you focus on the Qi, you get weak. And you need to focus on the spirit. And the spirit gives you like strength of steel. So So in Qigong, you're kind of stuck in this realm, and I don't mean to offend people who practice Qigong, but you're just focusing on trying to feel energy or things like that. And there's beyond, and this is, once again, like the higher levels, the spirit, like being one with everything. So you need, in Tai Chi, you experience maybe feeling the chi, things like that, but then you want to kind of go beyond that. You want to go from kindergarten to college, go to the more spiritual realm, and once again finding that unity of yin and yang.
So what you're saying is the qigong may be more of an external type of practice. The Tai Chi is really where you can go more internal. And if we look at the spirit, I mean, how would you define that versus Qi? Because I love that concept that if you focus on the spirit, you'll become strong as steel. And I'm sure it's like pliable as a green bamboo. But
exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So what does that mean, and how do you get there?
Yeah, that's a difficult concept. I've thought about that an awful lot, and I think when they talk about spirit, I think they're talking about awareness. Now, in Chinese culture, they say, like in Chinese medicine, for example, they say your spirit resides in your heart. And I think everybody can relate to that on the level of, we feel love in our heart. Or you feel a pain, kind of in your heart, you're just sad or something like that. So I think there's some element of truth, but in Chinese medicine too, they talked about like different spirits, and some cultures think there's many spirits in the body. There's the one of consciousness, the physical body, spirit, things like that. In Chinese medicine, they call it the Hun and the Po. Mm-hmm. And I'm not an expert on that, so I can't really talk about that too much. But I think in terms of Tai Chi, what we're talking about is being consciously aware of things. And with that conscious awareness, once again, feeling more connected to each other, more connected to the environment, things like that. For example, I was visiting Paul a number of years. I see him every 2 or 3 years now. I don't see him too often. He's quite a distance away. But I was visiting him one time, and across the street from him, somebody was cutting down a redwood tree or something like that. And he commented on, he goes, "Oh, I could just feel the tree. It was so painful." And at first I was like going, "Oh, that's kind of hard to understand." But then I realized, yeah, he's really connected. He's, you can kind of feel things, just like you're connected to everything. So once again, that's, kind of my goal in Tai Chi is try to feel connected to everything, be a part of things. And that's not to say that it's easy to do that. I mean, it's kind of things like, okay, you can do it for a short period of time and then you don't do it. Somebody cuts you off in a parking lot or something. It's like, okay, can I be consciously aware and exhibit kindness, or do I get mad kind of thing? So, of course, we're all human, have emotions, but our goal is to kind of like, okay, let's just, like I said, take that step back, take a deep breath, and okay, it wasn't a big deal kind of thing.
I like that. And the spirit part is, it's always, it's something I've thought about a lot too. I mean, especially in the Buddhist tradition, where you realize that the name Buddha is the awakened one. And so all we're trying to do is stay awake in life, right? And be conscious of what we're doing and be connected to a greater sense of that, I guess you'd call it that strength that can reside. And so Tai Chi, it might be a really powerful portal. I mean, for you, it's been a powerful portal to transport you to that, in that direction throughout your life. And so what would you say the best way is for someone to get started with this, someone who's just fresh out of the gates on their journey?
I think that there's a lot of people teaching Tai Chi nowadays all over the United States. So, and I think in most communities, most larger communities, you can find somebody who teaches. Now, whether you like that teacher or relate to that teacher, that's a different story, okay? Because it's just like going to a doctor. The doctor might be real good, but maybe doesn't have good bedside manner. And it's like, oh, guy's great, but I don't really care for him, so I'll go to somebody else. So, anybody's gonna be like that in whatever aspect of life. So try to find somebody who, number one, that you feel comfortable with. You feel like they have something of value. Number two, I would say try to find somebody who's been practicing for at least 5 years. There's a push nowadays to get people certified in Tai Chi, and different organizations have come up. And some of this means that you've taken a weekend class and then you teach Tai Chi. I had somebody from the local health department call me up a couple of years ago and said, "Oh, can you teach some of our people Tai Chi so they can teach other people?" It's like, no, I can't. You stay with me for like 5 or 6 years and maybe you might be able to do that. But it's not a weekend course. So find somebody who, if they're practicing for, I would say at least 5 years, they probably have a good basic understanding, a good foundation of Tai Chi principles, and could be a good teacher. Now, there's other people too who've, just have a couple years under their belt and they're just exceptional people. It's like people who can play music by ear. They don't have to read music. They just go for it. They can play fantastic. And there's people like that in Tai Chi too. So it's a matter of finding those people. There's also, once again, lots of classes on the internet. And I teach the Zoom classes, and people are more than welcome to sign up for that. I have every 2 weeks I give like a little free introduction on Zoom for the Tai Chi class. And that's something, you can be anywhere in the United States, and the classes are taped, and then you can watch it later if it's not in your time zone. So just search for it. When you start looking for things, sometimes they'll just come out from, under the rug. You didn't realize things were around you. You didn't realize, oh, there's actually 3 Tai Chi teachers in town, kind of thing. So you just gotta kind of open your eyes and look for it.
And Lynn, hey Lynn, from St. George, she said the Dixie State University has a young style of Tai Chi that they offer. So even at some of the universities, they're offering Tai Chi. So it looks like, from what you're saying, there's a lot of resources out there. And I would encourage everybody to, give it a try. You've piqued my curiosity, that's for sure. After practicing Qigong, I've experienced Tai Chi a few times, but the movements just feel overwhelming to bring these all together. And so it does take time to really learn it. But holy smokes, what an investment in your overall future health. The thing I kind of wanted to finish up on, if you're okay with this, Michael, we can talk about whatever you'd like, but I did want to bring in the acupuncture aspect of Tai Chi and how you use acupuncture to direct the energy and help people in their overall healing process.
I don't really feel like I use the Tai Chi in my acupuncture practice, other than recommending it to people doing that. But I do think that because I practice Tai Chi, maybe I have more sensitivity to people, how they feel, things like that. In acupuncture, what we're trying to do, once again, is move the Qi. We think of it as blockages in the body and try to adjust the body. And once again, we get into this idea of Qi and what it is or what it isn't. But yeah, acupuncture is a powerful thing. Like I said, I've been practicing for 36 years and helped a lot of people. There's also a lot of people I couldn't help. Nobody's 100% perfect on anything, right? And that's why we have a physical therapist or chiropractors or doctors or other modalities that we need to blend together. So no, I don't particularly use my Tai Chi in my acupuncture.
Got it. And so let's, I think we've got a couple minutes left, but let's just define Qi. What would you say it is? If it's not energy, and you're someone who studied this very intensely, what would you say it is?
So Qi, what is it? So the original meaning of Qi was something that flows that cannot be grasped. You can't hold it. So, for example, they observe something would come in and out of your lungs, like in a cold morning. You breathe out, you see something come out, right?
Right.
So they go, well, something's going in, but something's going out. Now, why can't I put that in a jar? So it's something that's there, but you can't hold it, right?
Mm.
And so it became like a catch-all term to explain things. So, for example, you have your basic energy. You would talk about your protective chi, your wei chi in your body, which kept you from, if it was strong, you wouldn't get sick. If it was weak, you had a tendency to get sick. They talk about the jing chi, which is passed on from the parents to the child. And if, the parents were of good health, then the child would be of good health. Different types of chi in the body, the nutritive chi, which you got from food. So there's actually not just one kind of chi. And that's, I think, like in Qigong, they just talk about chi in general, but there's so many different types. It's almost endless. But when we think about it, the defensive chi was really a way to describe the immune system. Because if your immune system's strong, then you don't get sick. And if it's weak or you're under stress, you get sick. The Jing Qi, which is passed on from the parents, is really basically like your DNA. Or are you passing on good characteristics to your children? If you're not healthy to start with, maybe your kids aren't going to be healthy either. But then that could be part of the nutritive Qi too. Maybe basically your Qi from food. So your vitamins, minerals, proteins, carbohydrates, things you're getting from food. Basically, they were using the word Qi to describe things that they understood to a degree, but they didn't pin it down like we have today. So once again, Qi is kind of a vague idea. Now, the Qi that we move in acupuncture is a result of the nervous system. So basically, when you put a needle in somebody, say in their arm or leg or whatever, they obviously feel where that's at, and it sends a signal to the brain. And then from there, the brain, it triggers a response in the body. There's also sorts of different biochemical responses. You could probably explain that better than I could. But that's what's happening. It's triggering these biochemical responses in the body so the body can heal itself. So it's not necessarily, kind of this magic energy. And that's one problem with acupuncture, which has kept it on the fringe of modern medicine, is that describing the idea of channels. You've probably treated a number of doctors too, and if you talk to them when they do a surgery or something like that, or they don't find the acupuncture channels in the body. They're invisible, right? But basically, I think what they're doing is they're triggering the nervous system. So the acupuncture, the idea of meridians, was actually a mistranslation of the Chinese word Jinglo, which refers more to the blood vessels in the body.
And Michael, I apologize. We are my Cameron saying, okay, we got to wrap up, but we need to continue this conversation. We'll get you back on, but thank you so much for being with us. It's been phenomenal. Everybody you have, we posted, go to readingtaichi.com. And Michael, pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for being part of our community.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me. It was fun to be here.
Yay. And thank you, everybody. We'll see you same time, same place next week. Love you all. Bye-bye.